Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Mystery Science Theater 3000, episode 1103, The Time Travelers. This episode's a big deal regardless kind of how you feel about it, because it is the 200th episode, I'm assuming not counting KTMA. Overall of Mystery Science Theater, it is the first one. We get an appearance from Joel in one of the host segments, and head writer Iliad Kalan. You know, I think that could make it more of an interesting episode than it is. I think it's probably more of an average Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode. I think if you look at the season of any show, it's as strong as its average episode really is. Probably its weakest link, but I haven't gotten that far, so I can't really say what the worst one is yet. And I really like this episode a lot. I still laughed. I actually laughed at the first Gypsy in theater joke that I have when she said Rip Torn as Doctor Strange. I can feel myself getting more used to this new incarnation of Mystery Science Theater. The rapid fire jokes that used to feel a little jarring bother me less and less. There's still some funny host segments, particularly I think my favorite was the Invention Exchange, where Dr. Crow's silicon packets, which was pretty funny. And I like the Afterlife Care, or Afterlife Alert, I guess, which I also thought was pretty funny. I'm liking the Invention Exchanges. The other skits, them destroying robots, was just kind of cute. I did like seeing Joel again. We'll see how much Joel's in it. I think he does other guest appearances. I'm not sure. I listened to the Mystery Science Theater 3000 Revival League podcast, and the one where they go over every episode, but I paused it before they got into Avalanche, which is the next one, as I am reviewing and watching these in order. That guest appearance was more like, oh cool, it's Joel, but it never really, for me, got past that. But in terms of using the movie Time Travelers, it was a good choice for a Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode. Apparently, what I learned from the Revival League podcast is it was used a lot of practical effects, kind of stage more magic effects, which is why Joel picked it. I noticed that a little bit, but it was so kind of like slow, old sci-fi movie that I was just more like having fun with the bots and stuff, so I guess I didn't focus on that as much. But I kind of like the weird kind of effects it has in it a little bit with the Time Travelers. They made mention that the director I.B. Melchior also wrote Reptilicus and is from Copenhagen, Denmark, and I'm curious if, because Reptilicus was made into an American film, if that like got him over to Hollywood to eventually make this film. I'm not sure, but the dates would suggest maybe Reptilicus played a hand in that, or I really didn't care enough to look through his Wikipedia or anything to find out how he exactly came to be a B-movie director in Hollywood. The most notable thing about the Time Travelers, well, two notable things, I guess, is that it influenced The Time Tunnel, which was a sci-fi TV show from the 60s, which probably no one watching this video has even heard about or knows. I mean, I certainly believe, because there was a tunnel that they went through time in, so, you know, of course it is. That was the one thing, I guess, about this movie, is like they traveled through time once. I mean, maybe I'm like, because of my modern time travel stuff where people travel through time like a ton of times, but in Time Travelers they do it like once, and you're like, oh, okay, that's the future. I guess they technically, you know, that's a pretty cool thing, but it's just, you know, I would have liked them to have traveled more than once. And it's apparently notable for being an influence on the 1967 remake of Journey to the Center of Time. Not exactly sure why specifically that one, and since I haven't seen that one, I don't know, but maybe at one point I will see it and it'll make sense to me. But this is also the first American film shot by Vilmos Zsigmond, who is a famous cinematographer who shot things like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Deliverance, The Deer Hunter, Heaven's Gate, Blowout, tons and tons of stuff. He's really a great, amazing kind of all-time film history DP. This does not showcase any of that, so if you're like, wow, that guy shot this, he clearly learned some things. This is 64, I think his first big thing was early 70s or around there. I certainly think he didn't get to show what he could really do artistically until much later. I actually got to just sit up and put my feet up and watch this episode, and kind of no one was around, and have kind of like a nice night with a Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode, which I haven't done since when like the old show was on, and I had an entertaining evening. But I guess the thing is would I recommend this beyond that? Like, if someone was getting into the show, I would probably say Cry Wilderness. I think I liked Reptilicus, probably had more highlights for me. I think maybe overall this was good, but for me still Cry Wilderness is the real standout from this season. I think this is just a good average kind of episode. I don't think it's bad by any means. I think you can tell the riffers, Jonah, Barron, and Hampton, are getting more used to this and having better and better chemistry as this season goes on. One thing I learned from the Mystery Science Theater Revival podcast, which is, I haven't listened to one that's not the one where they go over stuff, so I guess I can't recommend it fully, but it sounds pretty good so far, and I'm probably going to listen to other episodes. But they mention with their interview in Jonah, where they go over every episode, that they actually shot the riffs in order. Like, they were shot, like, the first riff shot was Reptilicus, the third riff shot was the Time Travelers. You see them kind of get more and more nuanced with it. The host segments were shot whenever time would allow and were shot out of order, but the riffs were not. And that's different because before it would be all shot at once, and maybe why the host segments, for me, I think feel a little differently. Even though it still, like, has that Mystery Science Theater vibe, I still like it. It just, I can sort of tell while watching it there's a different thing. But the riffs feel just the same, and you can get that evolution of them as a comedy team. And I think I can feel that evolution. I still think this is a very funny episode. I think it's good for fans. Like, if you showed it to someone, I don't think they'll, like, hate the show, but I don't think this is one that would make you love the show. You know, it makes me excited to watch another one because I had a decent time, you know? I'm not as enthusiastic as I was after Cry Wilderness, but I'm still enthusiastic to keep watching them, and I'm very excited for Avalanche, even though this was done by someone who did Reptilicus. I like that these were different films. I haven't seen them do a black and white one yet, which I guess is kind of one thing. I wish variety in terms of films and so forth. This is sort of close to Reptilicus, but they're all very different kinds of movies, which I think really works for the show, and it's still, like, very funny. They still have funny host segments. It's still a very funny Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode. It's just an average funny Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode. A lot of people seem to like this episode a lot more than I do. You know, I can't love them all. I wouldn't say I hated it or anything. I was still like, you know, hey, that was a good time I had watching a Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode, and that's really what I wanted from this revival. This kind of meets my expectations. It doesn't exceed it the way, I guess, Reptilicus and Cry Wilderness very much did. This kind of just meets it, but meets it in a very pleasant way where I'm just like, alright, cool, I still love this show, I'm still into it, and I'm happy with what they're doing so far. This is almost a status report to say, like, hey, it's still working out, it's still going great, I'm just not blown away by this episode, other than, I guess, the gypsy joke and the invention exchange. I would like a silicone packet cereal, that would be cool. But other than that, I think this is a decently good episode that fits within the season. Is a good episode to keep you going, not one that will make you talking and recommend to people. It's just a good average Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode, and that this is an average episode for this season, I think probably shows how good it's going to be, or at least that's my vibe right now from watching the first three. I still, regardless, think this is, within all the episodes of Mystery Science Theater, fits nicely into being an average episode, and that's not really a bad place to be. So if you have seen Mystery Science Theater 3000, episode 1103, The Time Travelers, and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.